Now welcome. Our top story at this hour: ahead of the much-awaited Biden-Xi Jinping meet, the United States has warned China over its pressure on Taiwan. The U.S. State Department, in a statement, said that Secretary of State Antony Blinken spoke with Foreign Minister Wang Yi and expressed concerns regarding China's continued military, diplomatic and economic pressure against Taiwan. Blinken and Wang discussed preparations for the summit, and Blinken is said to have urged Beijing to engage in meaningful dialogue to resolve cross-strait issues peacefully and in a manner consistent with the wishes and best interests of the people of Taiwan. The U.S. President Joe Biden and his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping are set to hold a virtual summit on Monday, that is tomorrow. It is expected to be the leaders' most extensive meeting under the Biden administration. The two leaders have talked on the phone twice since Biden took office. Xi Jinping has not left China since the onset of the pandemic, and he was absent from recent global summits. Relations between Washington and Beijing have deteriorated in part over Taiwan. Washington has repeatedly signaled its support for Taiwan in the face of what it describes as Chinese aggression. China claims Taiwan as its own territory and says it should be taken by force if necessary. It has been applying pressure on Taiwan by sending a large number of ships, which it claims to be fishing vessels, into the disputed South China Sea. It has also staged several air missions over the Taiwan Strait as a form of imposing military pressure on the island. Taiwan resists, saying it is an independent country and will defend its freedoms and democracy.
Hi sir, 0700 sir, approximately 30 minutes.
And for more on this, joining us live from London is Greg Swenson, who is an international affairs expert. Greg, good to see you, and thank you very much for joining us at this hour. The meeting comes after President Xi Jinping warned against fostering a Cold War in Asia-Pacific region. What significance will the meeting play in the region, especially in efforts to diffuse tensions?
Yes, I think it could lead to some dialogue, which is important because there's been very little of that. You know, you had Antony Blinken and Jake Sullivan, you know, humiliated by the CCP's representatives earlier this year, which wasn't really a good look. It sort of demonstrated American weakness. So I think it's, if anything, it's nothing but upside in terms of at least initiating some dialogue. The president, the administration's had a very difficult first 8 months, so they're probably looking for a win. The only demonstration of strength that I can recall so far this year was announcing the so-called AUKUS arrangement, where we're building nuclear submarines for the Australians alongside with the UK. So that was a good moment. But the reductions in military spending in the U.S., the weakness demonstrated by the administration, I think we need a win, and I think surely the Biden administration needs a win. And entering into dialogue, as long as there's some strength and he doesn't demonstrate weakness, I think it's a good idea.
Greg, White House says that President Biden will raise concerns about human rights abuses against ethnic minorities in northwest China, investigations into the origins of the coronavirus pandemic, and also tensions with Taiwan. How will China likely react to that?
Well, I hope he does. I hope the president does, Eric. I'm not sure how Xi will respond. If the meetings in Alaska were any indication, I don't think he will take that well. Now, again, I can't read his mind. I don't know what how he's going into this meeting. But so far this year, the administration has demonstrated weakness. Whether it's Afghanistan, whether it's the meeting with the Chinese in Alaska, any number of occasions. I think President Biden should demonstrate some strength. So I hope he brings up those issues. President Trump, really brought up a lot of those issues. The first president to do so, and it really opened the eyes of many Americans as well as people around the world to the unfairness of Chinese mercantilist, business, and as well as the IP theft, and of course the treatment of the Uyghurs. So I'm glad that Trump, and especially Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, made a point of bringing up the Uyghur situation. I hope President Biden does the same thing.
Prior to this summit, China asked the U.S. to stop supporting Taiwan independence, which remains a sticking point here. Are we ever going to see an end to the hostilities between China and its border countries?
I hope so, of course. I think that's up to the Chinese. And I think you bring up a great point, Eric. It's all the more important to keep our alliances in the region. You're seeing it with the Quad, Japan, Australia, India. I think you'll see some trade agreements in the future with other Asian countries, ex-China. I think it's important to maintain those relationships. I think it's important to those countries as well. So I look forward to the U.S. taking a leadership role in the region, but I think we need the alliances to be in place.
Finally, Greg, what is the expected outcome of this summit between Xi Jinping and Joe Biden?
Look, again, I think it's just start the dialogue. It didn't start out well. I think the Chinese, the CCP as well as Xi, were disappointed that Biden was going to be this, there was a perception that Biden was a pro-Chinese, much friendlier with Xi. They know each other from the Obama years. I think they were disappointed that Biden was distracted with other issues, which he has been, and hadn't really paid attention to China. They had hoped to resume the friendly relationship that we had during the Obama years. The problem is, during those years, the CCP behavior wasn't necessarily acceptable, but nobody really called them out on it. So I think it's important that the dialogue, we have some dialogue. I think that's better than not. But I wouldn't put too much hope in any great outcomes here, especially given the president's troubles at home and troubles with other issues. He's not in a great position of strength, whereas Xi has just been elevated, to the status that only two earlier leaders have had. So he's really beyond critique right now. So Xi's power has just been elevated in China, in the Communist Party, and yet Biden is polling in the high 30s and had suffered, blow after blow in terms of domestic and international policy. So I'm afraid that Biden's going to be in dialogue from a position of weakness, whereas Xi has just elevated his position of strength.
The summit officially begins tomorrow, so it is a wait-and-see situation for all of us. Greg Swenson, thank you very much for talking to WION.
Thank you.